Hello and welcome back again to Module 3, Lesson 2, Finding Your First Clients Using Social Media. So you might have gone out by now and contacted lots of people you know and found your first client already. But if you haven't done that or you don't think you have the contacts you need to be able to build your or find your first client using your existing contacts, then let's try and find you your first client using social media. So we're going to cover finding your very first client using your social media. So the first thing I wanted to say before I go on is that I want to stress that if you're planning on using social media to find clients, that it's really important that you take a really focused approach and don't try and do it all. So there's a lot of social media out there, so many different platforms, and you could pretty much spend all your time just trying to keep up with all the different social media platforms. So I think it's really important to be selective about what you do. You've probably got a preference for certain platforms, and you might find that your customers are most likely to use particular platforms. So if your customers are more likely to be on Instagram, then you might like to focus your content on that. Or if they're more on TikTok or wherever your clients hang out, you might like to focus on those. If it's in the more professional sphere, it might be best to spend more time on LinkedIn, but definitely don't try and do it all. There are some fancy social media posting tools that you can use to help make your life easier in terms of sharing on social media. So something that I tend to do is that for my property blog, I focus on sharing on Instagram. There seem to be quite a lot of people in that area that are interacting on Instagram. So I've focused on that, but I use Facebook's or Meta's business tool. Meta owns Facebook and Instagram, and it allows you to cross post between the different platforms. And there's other various different platforms that allow you to post across multiple different platforms. So my focus is Instagram. So I format my posts so that they're great for Instagram, but then I cross post them to Facebook so that it just kind of makes the most of it and keeps the Facebook page with some stuff that's current on it. But I don't spend a lot of time on there. And I think it's kind of the same when you're looking to find clients and you're trying to interact in groups and that kind of thing. I always think it's a good idea just to focus on a couple of groups and try and spend your time focusing on building relationships in those groups rather than doing lots and lots of different groups, because otherwise you'll just spread yourself too thinly and spend far too much of your time trying to cover all the bases rather than actually being able to build relationships and get seen. So some places on social media where you might find your ideal client. So Facebook and LinkedIn tend to be some of the main ones. Facebook because there are lots of groups where people interact, and LinkedIn just because, like I've mentioned previously, LinkedIn is a place where people are actively looking for people in the sort of employment context or even in the contractor type context. So it's a place where it might be slightly easier to be found than some of the other social media accounts. And Facebook, so you can use that much like you would do, in the earlier stages where we've been talking about, sharing your ideas and getting feedback on your ideas. So you find Facebook groups, you interact in those groups. A lot of groups have rules around not being too spammy and sort of sharing links to your website and that kind of thing. So make sure you're clear on what the rules are for particular groups. But Facebook is good for that. And again, like I've mentioned, LinkedIn is quite good. Have a look if you're on LinkedIn, or if you're not, consider signing up for it. But LinkedIn has opportunities for you to share things like relevant articles, and you could share your own blog posts and those kind of things. So it's quite a good way of showcasing your skills through that forum. Instagram can be a good one. It might seem a bit strange to use it as a business marketing platform, but it's particularly good if you're in the sort of creative space, because there's a lot of people on there who are looking for attractive looking Instagram pages. And if you can showcase your skills using your Instagram page, then potentially you're going to find work through doing that kind of thing. But also you can build an Instagram audience by just sort of interacting with other pages that you find on Instagram as well. So that's another option as well. YouTube can be one as well. So again, that might seem a bit weird, and YouTube is probably a bit more of a long route. But if, for example, you make videos about, so I found a website person on YouTube, and I came across them because I was looking for a solution to a website problem, and came across one of their videos that said it was like a how-to sort of video. So you might like to make some how-to videos if it's appropriate for your business. And then if they don't want to solve the problem themselves, or they're finding it too hard, you can put in their contact information for them to be able to find you. So for this web person, I was able to send him an email and say, look, this is a problem that I'm having. Are you able to help me solve this problem? And then you get in contact with them that way. So it might seem like a bit of a roundabout way, but YouTube could help you to find clients as well. And of course, if you've done these YouTube videos, it's content that you can share across your other pages as well. So if you have, a YouTube video, you could then share it on your Facebook page. So that's another option as well. Pinterest is another one that people use. I've found Pinterest to be quite time consuming, but if you're creating content like blog posts, you could share that on Pinterest, and sometimes people can find people through Pinterest. It's not really sort of my area of expertise, but I know there's a lot of people who do use it, particularly again in the creative space. Like I've seen quite a lot of people who use Pinterest in a situation where maybe you're selling content, like there are a lot of people who make sort of pre-designed posts and things like that people can then edit and with their own, make them different for their own purposes. But they might sell packages for a set price on Pinterest, and you can find them through Pinterest, and then you pay for their Instagram post package of maybe 30 posts or something like that, and they buy it through that way, or worksheets and those kind of things. So Pinterest is another way. And then there might be others. So there's so many different social media outlets now. I'm not even across all of them, but you might have a favorite one where your customers hang out and you can find them that way. So just to elaborate a little bit more, so where to find your ideal clients online. So online groups and communities, as I mentioned, are really, really good. So you could post your idea on there. You can ask questions about services people need, and that way people can sort of see what you're doing. Some groups allow you to do direct posts advertising your business. A lot of the time, groups will have a particular time or day of the week where you're allowed to post advertising posts. Some don't allow you at all. So just make sure whatever groups you're joining that you're clear about what the rules are around advertising your business. Another one that I've seen work really well for a lot of people is answering questions. So that's engaging in different Facebook groups in particular. So if somebody's posting a question saying, do you know how to fix this problem on my website, and you're a website person, then you can go on there and say, provide some feedback, not necessarily give away all your secrets, but go on there and provide some feedback that helps to support that person. And then they might say, oh, actually, this is too hard, and they might contact you. But by engaging with their post, then you're starting to build some relationships in that group. And then often from there, it might lead to referrals and that kind of thing. So again, another way to start is to engage in groups, and it's something you could start straight away, even if you're, you don't have your business set up yet, or you're not quite ready to start. By engaging in those groups and building those relationships, then when you are ready to launch, you've got potential clients who have, had relationships with you, or might even ask you outright, could you help me with this directly? So that's one way to get started as well. And I think the key thing is to be seen. So again, that's another reason why you don't want to spread yourself too thinly. So if you did like a post once a month in a group, it might be a lot harder for you to be seen. But if you're in that group interacting a lot regularly, then the people who are regulars in that group are going to see you a lot and see you interacting a lot more often. And then, I think it builds the interest in you as a person and in your services. So I feel like it's a lot better for you to spend your time focusing on maybe 2 or 3 groups rather than doing odd posts in, say, 10 different groups. You'll have a good idea as well if there's any interest groups or niche communities that are good for you to post in. They might be sort of local groups, or it might be that there are specifics for your industry where you can engage in those groups, find those groups. Sometimes those groups are good because they're smaller and they have people in who are more directly interested in what it is you're doing, whereas the generic groups often are quite big business groups, and it might be harder to pinpoint exactly the kind of person who is your ideal client, but having a mix of those is a good idea as well. But again, I just want to stress, don't try and do it all, or you'll just run yourself ragged trying to cover everything and just not really make anywhere near as much progress as you might do if you just stick to focusing on a few things. So, action station. So, I think it's good to do a bit of a brainstorm to think about the kind of groups where your ideal client hangs out online. So, you might like to think about 5 groups that you know of that are relevant to your industry, or which are general business groups where you think your clients might be. And you might want to spend some time having a look in those groups and scrolling through the posts in those groups to see the kinds of things people are asking. You might find almost straight away that you can find some posts that are relevant for you that you can comment on and potentially either engage or offer your services to help people. And once you've spent a bit of time in those 5 groups, you might decide to choose 2 or 3 of those groups that you want to focus your time in. So spending maybe 15 minutes each day, depending on how much time you have, it might be 5 minutes each day going onto that group and engaging in those groups, and just making sure that you don't spend too long doing that engagement, because 15 minutes can easily turn into 50 minutes, and then you've spent a lot of time that you might be doing other things, playing around on social media. I've said there to remember to use the search function. So search the group if that's possible, if you have that functionality. So if you search for keywords, you can sometimes find posts where people have asked questions. Some of those groups are really big and it's quite hard to spend time scrolling through. There might be hundreds of posts in a day and it's hard to scroll through and find relevant ones. But if you're a copywriter, you could just search for copywriting, or you could search for proofreading or something along those lines and see what comes up in those groups. And then that gives you the opportunity to comment directly on relevant posts. So if you're short on time, that can be one way to find the relevant posts. But remember, check when that was posted, because it might be if it's posted a month ago, that person may not any longer need assistance. So just bear that in mind when you're commenting. Of course, it doesn't hurt to try. So see what luck you have with that. And then the other thing too is update your LinkedIn and Facebook profiles if you're comfortable to do that, so that people can see that you're actively looking for work. So you might want to post about that. You might want to just update and say you've started your own business. You might want to do some regular posts on those platforms, just sharing what you're up to try and get some engagement and to make people think about you when it is that they're looking to get some help, or if they hear of somebody who needs some help. So definitely do those things to try and keep your business in mind for people. All right, so spend a bit of time doing those activities, and then we're going to move on to Module 3, Lesson 3, which will provide you with some information on some websites where you can find freelance work.